But Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready.
This is where we get to take some people to task, potentially, depending on which way you go with some of this kind of stuff. So, both USC and Penn State fans are kind of making a sport these days out of knocking Notre Dame's 2025 football schedule. Most Notre Dame fans disagree with the take that the Irish schedule is soft, but we've had a few, at least, on the Premium Champions Lounge, where we had all the we in, we out questions, who agree that Notre Dame's schedules in recent years are not that great. So, Jesse, where do you stand on this?
So I feel like there's a couple questions within the question.
Okay.
I think on paper, it is a really idiotic idea to judge a team's schedule before the season has started. You never know what these teams are going to turn out to be. All you can do is put them on the schedule and hope that you have enough premier matchups, middle, matchups, and what you would probably consider lower tier matchups. And you hope that your low tier to middle tier turn out as best as possible, right? Like, you can't control last year, if Florida State was on the schedule, them having that abysmal season. You did your job by
going
putting
into
Florida
the season.
State,
everyone thought they were going to be a lot better than what they turned out to be.
They thought that was a playoff team, an ACC champion. And so I completely agree that you should, analyze the schedule, but let's do that after the season. And then to answer the second part of your question, I do agree that there is if there are Notre Dame fans out there who feel a certain type of way about Notre Dame's schedule in the past couple of years, I would have to agree. I understand that 6 or 7 of your games are going to be the ACC. One of them is going to be Navy, and you're hoping that, Southern Cal stays. But what are they doing outside of those games? I don't need Tennessee State, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio, Marshall, Ball State. I think that it's okay to maybe have one of those teams, but when you get into multiple MAC schools,
last year was an anomaly.
A little frustrated.
Yeah, last year was an anomaly. Obviously, it was probably the worst Notre Dame schedule of the last 50 or 60 years. I would have to imagine. When you look at 2 MACs and 2 service academies being on there, so basically, it was not good. But do you want to win and compete for national championships, or do you want a schedule that's a murderer's row? That's like, why would you overschedule? Like, Notre Dame's schedule is balanced enough. This year's schedule,
they've got enough meat on that.
Yeah, there's definitely enough meat. And if I'm comparing it to Southern Cal and to Penn State, who I'm talking about, Southern Cal opens the season against Missouri State and Georgia Southern. Penn State's first 3 games are Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. I'm sorry, but Purdue is probably the only team on Notre Dame's schedule that could be worse than any of those 5 teams right there. And USC and Penn State fans are trying to point at Notre Dame's schedule and say it's soft. But of course USC plays Purdue as well. So what's their case there? All these Big Ten teams think that they have these brutal schedules because they're in the Big Ten, but it is just not the case. USC has Notre Dame, Oregon, and then Illinois as its 3rd best team. I don't even know who its 4th best team is. Rutgers, maybe? Nebraska, maybe? I have no idea. Penn State has Oregon, Ohio State, and then Indiana is its 3rd best team. But do any of us really think that Indiana is going to be what they were last year? And actually, Nebraska and Rutgers are on Penn State's schedule. But, still, when you look at USC. So, Notre Dame has Miami, Texas A&M, Boise State. Will Boise State be what they are or were last year? Probably not, but they're still year in and year out, literally for the last almost 20 years now, the best group of 5 team that there is consistently. And then they've got USC, Arkansas. Is USC better than Arkansas? I don't know. But when you look at the schedule on balance that Notre Dame has, you've got 2 SEC schools, 2 Big Ten schools, the best group of 5 of the last 20 years that just went to the college football playoff, 6 ACC teams, and Navy. Like that's a very comparable schedule to either of the schedules and still tougher than either USC or Penn State or most of the rest of the Big Ten for that matter, except Purdue, because Purdue keeps getting screwed playing the toughest schedule the last couple of years since they expanded.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten is very top heavy, and then they get credit for the rest of the conference playing those games. Like, oh, we're playing Big Ten games. It's like, oh, I don't care about you playing crappy Maryland.
Yeah.
You know, like
the Big Ten is helping its best teams with the schedules that they're getting.
Right.
Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and even USC for that matter. They're trying to help USC. I mean, USC's got Michigan. What's Michigan going to be? We don't know.
Well, and the thing that I guess, like Notre Dame, here's how I break it down. Notre Dame plays that ACC chunk that they play. It's yes, there's some duds in there, but most of the time, like they're playing Clemson every year, who is really good. They're playing Duke, who is predominantly pretty good every other year. North Carolina, who was on the schedule, is pretty solid. Pittsburgh, pretty solid. Playing at Virginia Tech, pretty solid. Like I would take Notre Dame's ACC schedule over playing those bottom feeder Big Ten schools, and then you throw in that okay, they got Arkansas on the schedule, Boise State on the schedule, USC on the schedule. That's a SEC team. That's the Group of 5 champion last year. That's USC, who everyone thinks is going to be at the top of the Big Ten now. So I don't know. Like again, I don't mind Notre Dame's schedule. The only time I get mad is when basically those 3 out of conference games, like you mentioned for Penn State, when Notre Dame kind of has something similar between like 2 MACs and Tennessee State, or you know what I mean? Like I'm cool with maybe 1 or 2 type MAC teams per year. Outside of that, I think it's too much.
By the way, Notre Dame is the only Power 5 team playing Boise State this year. Like, and with Boise State getting to the playoff last year, like traditionally they've had a hard time getting Power 5 teams to schedule them. And I think it's going to be tougher, if they keep making some playoff appearances every year, but people want to call Notre Dame's schedule soft when they went out and scheduled them last year before they even knew they were going to be a playoff team. So fill in the blank. ESPN released its ACC predicted order of finish for the upcoming season, and it's blank. They have Notre Dame's season opening opponent, Miami, picked number 1 with Clemson at number 2.
It's delusional. Miami's losing their best player in Cam Ward. They lost some of their wide receivers were even drafted, I'm pretty sure, or made NFL rosters or training camps. Long story short, Miami's going to be worse than last year, and Clemson's going to be better. Clemson added Tom Allen as defensive coordinator, obviously Penn State's coordinator. I think that Dabo has been doing a good job kind of, climbing back up the mountain after maybe having a couple more down years. He's got an experienced quarterback, whether you like Cade Klubnik or not. He's been there for a while. Their defense is going to be better. I think their offense is going to be more powerful. And Miami's just relying on transfer quarterback Carson Beck, who is coming off a torn UCL in his elbow. Like, there's a lot of more things working against Miami. And, like, Clemson has the track record of the last 10 years. Like, they're consistently good. Their worst season was, what, a 9-win season, an 8-win season? Like, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, it feels like this is kind of like Florida State of last year. Like, oh, they showed that they can be pretty decent or solid for a year. Let's just jump the expectations now even higher. Like, I'm not buying it. Not buying it.
Feels like it's at least good for Notre Dame going into the season. You got them right out of the gate, and Miami is expected to be as good as they are. How much we'll be able to put on it, who knows? Albert is obviously drinking the orange and green Kool-Aid someplace. He said Miami's going to kill Notre Dame. And again, I go back to a guy who covers Miami, David Lake, when I interviewed him in the month or so back, telling me that he watched Notre Dame's spring game and he felt like, just looking at the guys on the field, which wasn't even the full Notre Dame team, that far and away Notre Dame's roster is going to be better than Miami's. Like we're talking about who's going to win the ACC. At least right now, it's good for Notre Dame because people think that they're going to, like Craig says, ESPN doesn't do their research. This is all, like FPI and numbers based and all that different kind of stuff. They're like when I kind of read the breakdown and saw what the numbers were, they're fairly similar. I did find it interesting that they, like in the ranking that they have of returning talent and all that kind of stuff, they mentioned that Miami has 58% of its defense returning. Well, like 58%. So that's what, 6.5 guys or something like that. Like Notre Dame, I think, is at 65% of its returning production, and that's, I don't even know, like, again, like just based on the number that they had, I don't even know if that includes guys like Batelho and Traore, who obviously were hurt for more than half the season. So, yeah, I think that, like, between these two, I was shocked to see Miami at the top of that ACC list, because this really feels like, again, like looking at schedules, Clemson has a very favorable schedule, and I would be shocked if they're not at the top of the conference when all is said and done. ESPN also did a top 25 college football ranking based on the trajectory of each program over the course of the next 2 years. Key factors were quarterback continuity, coaching staff, and the trenches being intact. Here's how they rank it. Again, this is top 25 trajectory for the next 2 years. So this would be for like what they think the programs are going to be in 2025 and 2026. Texas is number 1. Ohio State is number 2. Georgia number 3. Oregon number 4. Notre Dame comes in at number 5, followed by Penn State, Clemson, LSU, Tennessee, and then Alabama at number 10. So, you good with where Notre Dame slots in at number 5 on this?
Yeah, I am good with Notre Dame being at number 5. I think as long as you're in kind of this top 10 list, you have something to feel good about. Like, I'm not going to get into the semantics of, oh, Notre Dame deserves to be 2 or 1 or 3 or 5. I think as long as you're in this conversation, I feel good about that. And the reason why I wouldn't necessarily throw them all the way to the top is you just don't know about the quarterback thing yet. And obviously that's a big part of this list, but they have a lot of solidity elsewhere. They, in their coaching staff, their trenches are great. Obviously we've talked about, their run game and defense. So Notre Dame is in a really good place, in my opinion. And I feel very confident about them being at 5 and again, just being in this kind of top 10 overall.
Yeah, I mean, look, 2 of the 3 teams who are ahead of them, I guess 2 of the 4 teams who are ahead of them have won national championships within the last 3 years. Texas has been in the playoff each of the last 2 years. Oregon just made it to the playoff. I would probably quibble a little bit. Again, it's splitting hairs, 4 versus 5. Who really cares? But I think that the bigger picture is Notre Dame is number 5 on this list. And if they live up to that over the next 2 years, that means, going back to a question that we had from Trevor in We In or We Out in terms of, how you would feel if they didn't make the college football playoff semifinal this year. If you're number 5, then you're going to be at a minimum contending to be in the semifinals every year, if not the national championship game. So you're feeling pretty good about that. And if you have the other things right, the quarterback, the trenches, the coaching staff, you're going to win more games than not, just like last year. So I think you got to be feeling really good to be Notre Dame at number 5 on a list like this. Just the way the program is perceived and what people are seeing, the national perception of the Notre Dame program is right up there with the elite programs in college football right now. And also 3 spots ahead of that guy down on the Bayou, by the way. Is there anything else on this list when you look at the top 10 that catches your eye?
Yeah, I think that there were two, well, maybe 3 things that caught my eye. I'm not sold on Oregon being at 4, to be honest with you.
I agree with that, especially like when you look at quarterback continuity. I think there's a lot to be shown there.
I think there's a big turnover in talent coming soon in Oregon. And I love, is it Lanning, Dan Lanning? I think he's a great coach and they have the right guy. I just don't know if they can continue to recruit and fill those big position needs like you were talking about, specifically at the quarterback level. The next would be And again, this isn't just because it's Brian Kelly. I just don't buy LSU being at number 8 when they haven't even gotten into the playoffs yet with Brian Kelly or an SEC championship, or like what accolades has LSU won since their national championship?
Seems a little high. I know they had a good transfer portal offseason and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily play into the trajectory for the next couple of years, and again, like for them to be sitting at number 8, I think is pretty significant. I think Alabama sitting all the way down at number 10, like, I've said it before. Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, just like Brian Kelly is a good coach, like a good developmental coach. But can Caleb DeBoer, can he recruit at the level that Nick Saban was able to recruit? I think that, like, he largely did it with a group at Washington that was intact. Like I said, good coach. And he also played in a worse conference. How's he going to do at Alabama? I think that Alabama at number 10, one, it catches my eye, but two, I think it's also deserving, because I do think that a program like Tennessee in their own conference has passed them up at this point where they are right now, sort of a crossroads for what's going on in the SEC. So Albert was chiming in about the whole Miami, and he said, if you think CJ Carr in his first start is going to win against Carson Beck, just stop. Just a second before you jump in. I'll let you have your chance because I know that you were ready. But we heard all last summer. We spent 3 months last summer with Texas A&M fans jumping in here and telling us about the butt whooping that Texas A&M was going to put on Notre Dame in a road game, and their quarterback was so great, not this and that and everything. How'd that play out? How'd it play out? Who was in the national championship game last year? Now that doesn't get you anything when you go into a new season, but we've all seen CJ Carr up close and personal. Now we also, for a week after Notre Dame beat Indiana in the first round of the college football playoff last year, for a week, we had Georgia fans telling us they were going to be better off without Carson Beck against Notre Dame.
And then
how'd
after
that work
was
out?
all the excuses.
How'd that work out? Yes. So what has Miami won at this point, Albert, that makes you so confident that they're going to lay this butt whooping on a team that just played for the national championship last year?
I love Toonce's comment. Can we start talking about the heat and humidity?
Yes.
That's other people's favorite topic is, Notre Dame's never played in this kind of heat. How are they going to fare in this kind of heat?
Albert says it's going to get ugly real fast. Yeah, and not probably the way that you want it to get real ugly.
So just to kind of get down to the root of his little argument here, fortunately for CJ Carr, he's got just a plethora of resources around him. He's got probably the Heisman front runner as a running back right now, Jeremiah Love. He's got a really good, talented offensive line. He's got Eli Raridan is going to make a huge jump this year, according to Mike Denbrock. He's got wide receivers that are on the up and coming. Then you go to the defensive side of the ball. He's got a great, defense on that side of the ball that can slow the game down. And he's got a better head coach. Marcus Freeman is a better head coach. He's got a better offensive coordinator. Mike Denbrock won a Heisman with Jaden Daniels and led a very potent offense down at LSU. And now he's got a quarterback that better fits his system. So I think Notre Dame's going to be better with CJ Carr at the end of the day.
I think a lot of people do at the end of the day. But he's unproven. People like Albert haven't seen him. Okay, he thinks that Miami's roster is more talented. And like Toonces says, they couldn't win last year. They couldn't even get into the ACC championship game last year with a guy that won the Heisman and was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But they're loaded with talent on that roster. I'm not saying they're talentless, but I think the state of Notre Dame's roster is in much better shape than Miami's.
And their coaching staff.
All right. I mean, Albert, if you want to just put a wager on it right now, we'd be happy to accept that. We take super chats. If you want to put a sawbuck or two on that. By the way, super chat earlier from Illmatic, in or out, the SEC goes 5 years without a title, counting the last 2 years.
I think they're going to win one with Arch at some point in the next 3 years, so I'll be out on this. I think Texas is going to get one. I think Arch Manning is going to be their savior.
I do too. That's like you talk about a loaded roster. That's a loaded roster, and they've got, a legit quarterback now as well. Oh, excuse me. Having a little hiccup action.
Don't get started on that mute button.
New Indianapolis Colts owner Carlie Irsay-Gordon likes to be on the sideline wearing a headset while holding a coach's call sheet during games. Here's her rationale. Quote, I need to be able to say, is this person full of BS? Do they even know what they're talking about? I would suggest it for anyone else who has to pay head coaches and GMs millions and millions of dollars. It helps you make a less expensive mistake, end quote. Some are calling this heavy micromanaging. Others think that this is a great idea. Where do you stand on this, Jesse?
Yeah, I actually am in favor of this idea because, like, you at the end of the day, you are the owner, right? And we're a part of we're fans of a franchise where the owner wants to be the GM and he wants to be all these things, right? Luckily for the Colts, they have an owner that steps away, right? And so, how do you step away but still feel like you have a grasp on what's going on? Because you're still making big decisions of, who to pay, who to hire, who to fire, all of those things. And so I think when it comes down to it at the end of the season or maybe after a game and, the coach is saying, well, I needed more from the player. And the player's like, well, I don't necessarily agree with the play call and we're not maximizing my potential and ability. Well, how do you have a gauge on how to determine who's right or wrong? Essentially, at the end of the day, you throw on the headset and you might not be making calls and you might not have input, but you at least know what's going on and you can hear the decision-making process. And so when things come back to you at the end of the day, you could say, well, I heard that decision being made live time and I don't necessarily agree for X, Y, and Z. And so I have managers who sit on meetings who don't even turn on their camera or on mute the entire time, but they're just kind of there to make sure things are kind of, going along and nothing major is essentially coming up. And again, probably the same thing where if something goes wrong in design, they can be like, well, I remember on this call, you specifically told this person to do this. So it kind of traces back to you at the end of the day. And so I don't mind it. It's not like she's giving her input. She's just saying, I need to have receipts if something goes wrong.
At the end of the year, a head coach is always going to be reviewed. Like, I would assume that they're going to sit down with the owner, the general manager. They're going to have conversations about how things went. What do you think went right? What do you think went wrong? What would you have done differently? All that kind of stuff. And if the owner is tuned in because she's literally listening to the way that the coach is dealing with things when it matters on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, like listening to what's going on, seeing the call sheet, as long as she's not, in there after every game, second guessing and doing those kind of things.
Right.
That we don't know because obviously Jim Irsay was the owner. This is his daughter. So like she hasn't had that kind of control yet, but she apparently has been wearing the headset. So she knows what's going on. So I like it because like it's the complete opposite of a detached owner watching from the luxury suite and doing it that way, and then trying to make the calls and second guessing and those kind of things. And I agree with what Tommy's, as long as she's not actually interjecting, but then again, she is the owner. So it's her prerogative to do whatever she wants, just like that owner you were talking about, Jesse. We'll get to that here in a minute, by the way. But first, Indiana Pacers radio play-by-play announcer Mark Boyle allowed Pacers TV announcer Chris Denary to call the second quarter of last night's game on the radio during the NBA Finals. Rate that move, scale of 1 to 10.
I'm going to rate it from my perspective.
Okay.
Honestly, I have to give this a 1 out of 10.
Wow.
I'm not on board with this because to me, it's like so the radio guy did this the entire season. At what point did the TV guy come on and be like, hey, man, you never get TV time. Why don't you
Want to
come
come
and
do a
do
TV game with me?
TV game with me? But now that it's playoff time, but TV guy doesn't get to be on TV anymore, he still wants to feel important and relevant. So now he's getting the sympathy invite to come on and do the radio game. I guess that's my whole point is, where was TV guy at for radio guy the entire regular season?
Did he ever give him a shot to do a TV game?
That's what I mean. But now that the games, now that we're in the NBA finals and the games are the most important they've ever been, now TV guys like, yeah, man, let me come on and do come do the radio game with you. That's the only part where I'm like, and again, I don't know how the conversation went, but looking at it on paper, those were kind of my initial thoughts.
Who hurt you, Jesse? Who hurt you when you were young? Huh? Who hurt you? Who made you so callous? Who made you this way? Who did this to you? This is a 10 out of 10. Now, this is now, like, we don't have this kind of thing at the college level, obviously, because it's, like whatever TV is going to be, like network TV that, that's going to be there. But like professional sports, specifically, basketball, hockey, baseball, you have both local TV and radio announcers. That's part of the reason that Len Casper, you remember when he left Cubs TV a few years back, he kind of thought he was jumping on the right wagon when the White Sox were still looking like they were going to be competitive. He made the move from Cubs TV to White Sox radio because he wanted the opportunity to call a World Series one day. He knew he wasn't going to get it as a TV guy. So to me, this is a 10 out of 10. Like the radio guy, all he did was give up one quarter during the NBA Finals. Literally at this point, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You don't know if the Pacers are ever going to be there again. Neither of these guys has been in that situation before. So I think it's really cool that he did this. Obviously, they are more friends than rivals, that he was willing to give up a little bit of his own airtime and let the TV guy jump in there and have the opportunity to call an NBA Finals game. We're going to have to do some digging and find out why Jesse is so callous right now.
I'm callous because Albert just said that Miami's recruiting is 10 times better than Notre Dame, but every list I've seen from the last 10 years has Notre Dame ahead of Miami. That's why I'm callous. All these freaking jabronis that come in here and just, if you're going to come in here and be a jabroni, at least have your facts straight. I feel like that's rule number one. Don't just be spitting non-valid facts out of the side of your mouth.
I mean, the delusional thing is one thing. And, I easily could have just hit the mute button, like a while ago, put him in timeout or whatever. But I kind of
these things play out a little
let
bit.
him stick around. But come on, Albert, you're just kind of, you're showing your own weaknesses at this point. You got to be on your game if you're going to interact. And I feel like you're missing a couple, maybe a couple drinks on South Beach. I don't know. Fill in the blank. The postseason Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton has had is blank.
Big moment clutch. I saw a chart the other day. I love my charts. Halliburton has been the most clutch postseason player of all time. This singular postseason run is better than anyone else's singular postseason run in terms of clutchness. Beating LeBron's 2016, beating Reggie Miller's postseason run with the Pacers. He is the most clutch player when it matters most. You don't often see that. Most of the time you see clutchness when it's a regular season game or, it's, we're beating a crappy team. They got to come back and win. No, he's doing this in the most important games against the best teams, which is why it's just he doesn't put up crazy stats every night. He's not putting up 30 pieces and 40 pieces, and he might occasionally, but he's more or less like a 15-point, 20-point, 10 assist kind of guy. But whenever you need a big bucket at the end of the game or you need to go on a run in the fourth quarter, who's leading it every time? It's Halliburton.
He's had a star-making postseason is what he's had. Because, to people like more like you who follow the game really closely. Like you knew who Tyrese Halliburton was. I know who Tyrese Halliburton is because of the fact that I live in Indiana. Not and not that I'm watching more Pacers games or anything like that, but like especially since Caitlin Clark has been there for the last year plus, it's like they've got two really young
They're killing it
stars,
right now.
and like it feels like this is for Halliburton. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that the Indiana Pacers are going to become like the Golden State Warriors of the next 5 or 6 years or something like that, but it's fairly similar, like to where Steph Curry was in his career. It took him a few years to get to that point before the Warriors actually elevated and he became that star, when he won the championship. And Halliburton is doing the same kind of stuff right now, especially considering what you're talking about, the fact that he does it in the clutch, the way he does it, like the shot against Cleveland where, like he's in the lane and he backs out and he hits the three from straight away. And then, like the bouncing shot, and all that, against the Knicks and, all the way through. Like the guy is just the end of the, the game one, just inside the arc with the game-winning shot in the whole thing. It's a star-making run that he's having right now. Like this, like I was saying before, neither team right now has a superstar, but he's obviously I think he's becoming a superstar in the making, especially if he can carry them to a championship against, he's already beaten two teams. Well, I guess not two. He's beaten one so far, Cleveland, that at least with record and what they did during the regular season was supposed to be better. Now, again, they're a team without a superstar as well, but like OKC, even better team. And if he can carry Indiana past them, I think that, he puts himself in a different echelon. Tommy's saying is there's nothing else to talk about other than basketball. Literally, he said, it's barely
it's the
a sport.
NBA Finals.
He would take tennis. It's the NBA Finals, and it's the middle of June, Tommy. And it's like,
well, isn't this the guy who's
32 minutes into rapid fire at this point?
Isn't this the guy who's always the sports talk police too? When other people are in here, why are we talking about this? And every time Tommy goes, guys, it's the sports talk show. Can we not talk about all sports other than Notre Dame football? Oh, I know what I was going to ask you too to wrap up this Pacers question, just because I know people are going to love it. Did you know that you knew so many Pacers fans?
No.
I love seeing all these Pacer posts on my social media now.
Come out of the woodwork, haven't they?
I was like, I never knew you even liked basketball, let alone you're a Pacers fan.
Jesse, the other day, we had a listener tell me, please don't talk about the Cowboys. So this is the first show you've been on since then. So, of course, we're going to talk about the Cowboys today. That's how we're going to close the show. Netflix has announced the premiere date for its upcoming Jerry Jones docuseries, America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, August 19th. Scale of 1 to 10, how much are you looking forward to that?
As much as we criticize Jerry Jones and his antics as a, owner, he's still a tremendous businessman, and he knows how to market the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be a 10 out of 10 for me. And the main reason this is going to be a 10 out of 10 for me is because this is going to be about when the Cowboys were good, when they actually won a lot, when they were the most popular team in the country,
right?
The glory days. I've not seen any of this.
The poster is Aikman, Emmett, Irvin. It's the triplets and Jerry Jones is like what they're using to market it. So
of course I'm going to watch, because one, I'm a Cowboys fan, and two, they're going to recap all of the good stuff that I never got to be a part of. So I'm going to love it. It's like the Hard Knocks, like when I knew that Jerry would put on a show and, they weren't going to be very good, but I was still going to be tuned into Hard Knocks at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I would say 9 out of 10. I am curious, like how much influence Jerry has over this, like, is it going to be, like a very pro Jerry type thing is all, is all it's going to do is sing his praises. Like, how much praise is Jimmy Johnson going to get? How much credit is Jimmy Johnson going to get in any of this? So I am kind of wondering about that. But look, it's our team, and I'm going to watch when it's all said and done. So I'm very looking forward to it, but I am curious just how much bluster comes out of this whole thing, because it's Jerry Jones at the end of the day. I'm gonna let you make the call on this. Mike says, sorry, but SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, is a superstar. Do you buy or sell that, Jesse? You are much more the NBA fan than me. I would say star, not quite superstar.
I would say going into this season, no. I think once this season ends, you could potentially say yes.
Because he's the MVP.
MVP could win the fight. Like,
if they win the championship, yeah,
he's been on the brink of being like. I would say people kind of knew he had the talent at some point to do it, but like, this is the first year where he's finally kind of taken the bulls by the horn and been like, I'm going to be a star player, basically. And he won the MVP, and he could win the NBA Finals. And I think those are things that help you establish your role as a superstar in the NBA. But going into this season and currently, I would not deem him a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, like the guy we were just talking about, Halliburton, has been the biggest star of these playoffs. And I put them fairly close. SGA is a better player, but like in terms of like star power, I think that they're fairly equal. And right now, Halliburton's star is brighter. They're fairly equal because of the fact that they play in small markets, Oklahoma City and Indianapolis. And so that definitely works against them. But, like if you put the uniforms of even Dallas and like the Knicks on these players, I think the perception of this series is a lot different. Don't you? Like the Oklahoma City and Indianapolis?
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
I do as well. I was wondering this as well, Jesse. We haven't seen DK in a while. Everything okay with him? Anybody know like what's going on with
he must be in divorce court or something.
You didn't have to go there. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the questions and we in, we out earlier today. And hit the like button before you leave. Say goodbye to your old friend Albert as you leave as well. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.